This video is sponsored by Squarespace. These are Garmin Vector 3 dual-sided power meter pedals, which I bought last year because I love Garmin products and wanted to track my power when cycling outdoors. But when I got them, an awful lot of people told me that after just a few short months, I'd have problems with them. Well, they were wrong. I had problems with them straight away. For example, I used them in a duathlon race where they indicated that I was averaging 1.6 watts per kilo. And as I'm not an overweight 9-year-old, I thought that might be off. So I dropped Garmin an email at the start of this year showing them two power graphs for a warm-up and race I did on Zwift. Power recorded by my Wahoo kicker bike sent to my cycle computer, and then the power recorded by the pedals sent to my Garmin watch. Almost a 100 watt average difference between the two, with the pedals thinking I was generating a lot less than I actually was. But that very long email exchange with Garmin, where they had me carry out all sorts of checks and calibrations on these, concluded with them saying, the amount of difference you are getting is within expectations. Two power meters recording the same activity 100 watts apart. To be expected, apparently. I thought to myself, it is annoying I only have 20,000 subscribers. If I had 1,020,000, I'd make a video so a lot of people could see how silly Garmin were being when they said that. Well, do you know what? My subscriber count is now nowhere near 1 million. I got bored waiting though. These suck. So last week I wanted to answer 3 questions. 1, could I still whiz up Alpe to Zwift in under an hour despite not having ridden much at all this year? 2, were these Wahoo power meter pedals any better than Garmin's? And 3, did I still hold so much resentment towards these and a huge amount of money they cost that I would do all I could to subliminally, at least, suggest to anybody watching that they are nothing better than fancy paperweights? I'm just going to pop that there. So, Wahoo PowerLink Zero pedals. This is not going to be an in-depth review of these, although that will be coming soon. Rather just initial impressions, having set them up and used them a couple of times now. Now, I got these because when I spoke to Wahoo about the problems that I'd been having with those ones, they kindly offered to let me have a go with theirs instead. And as always, they come with no obligation to do anything with them other than just have a play and then say what I think about them. I just use them and tell you what I think. So I've set them up and had a couple of goes on the Wahoo kicker bike. Obviously, I don't need a power meter on the kicker bike. These are for use on my bike when I'm outside. But the kicker bike gives me a nice easy testing platform to use. And first impressions, when I opened the box, were very, very good. The pedals use the dinky little Speedplay form factor, which is really minimalist looking. It's very smart. I took them out, attached them onto the bike, super easy. Put the little charging clip on them, plugged them into a USB socket, short time later, good to go. So pedals, very nice. But then I looked in the rest of the box and realised there was still an awful lot of bits and pieces, which is when I realised the reason the pedals are so minimalist looking is because what goes on the bottom of your shoe is not. So good news and bad news. The good news is that the Cleat has huge amounts of adjustability, backwards and forwards, left and right, and float. You can get it set up exactly how you want. And once it's on the shoe and sorted, it looks fine. It might be a bit big and chunky, but actually just walking around the gym with them was fine. It wasn't unstable. And if you're somebody who likes to dial in your fit to the nearest millimeter, you'll be very, very happy with those, I'm sure. The bad news is they consist of 618 moving parts. That's an exaggeration, but only just. There's an awful lot going on with the cleat on the bottom of the shoe. As a guide to how much, despite being somebody who never reads the manual for anything, not only did I read the manual, I had to start watching the instructional video on YouTube to learn how to put the thing together. Even then, to put them onto the shoe took me quite some time. They are very susceptible to being over tightened. They also don't like not being fixed to a dead flat base, so you have different little shims to put into the cleat to level them out. You just have to be super careful screwing it all together. It's a process. It may be fiddling about with stuff like that floats your boat, in which case you are going to have a whale of a time with them. I didn't. I got there in the end. Hopefully they don't need to do much with them going forward now they're on, but it was a bit of a palaver. And then onto the bike. They were fine clipping onto the pedal. It was no more or less complicated than any other system I've ever used. It's handy, they're dual-sided, so you don't have to sort of fiddle about trying to spin the pedal over to get on the right side of it. But aside from that, they're just push your foot down, clip in, twist your foot and it comes off. All very straightforward. What I was really interested in was the numbers that they gave me. So I thought I would jump on the bike and use the pedals to ride up out to Zwift. That would give me a good feel for using them over a decent length of time and also some easily measurable results. And I just thought it would be interesting, not having been on the Wahoo kicker bike properly in months and not been up out to Zwift since Christmas time, and that was with Nixon. You ready? Let's do it. Am I able, at 100 kilos, to just jump back on the thing and go up there under 60 minutes? Spoiler alert, probably not. But before we get to that, just a quick mention for Squarespace, who are superb in both their ongoing sponsorship of this channel, which literally helps me make these videos, and probably more importantly, their ability to help you create your own website. My website was creating using one of their templates, and it's a very good example of what somebody who really has no idea what they're doing can still put together using Squarespace. So go and check that out. It is where most of the questions that I get asked all the time end up being answered. And because it's so easy to edit and update either directly on the computer or even from your mobile phone, we are always adding new bits and pieces to it. For example, the ski erg we got recently is now on there, details too of where I got my new standing desk from, and by the time you watch this, the pedals will probably have made their way there as well. These ones will have, not the ones back there. So very happy to recommend Squarespace. If you're interested in setting up your own website, just go to squarespace.com, pick yourself a template from the loads they have available, and then tweak and adjust it to your heart's content. I've only scratched the surface of what it can do, so don't use my site as an example of everything Squarespace has to offer. There's plenty more I could do and probably will get round to doing very soon. For example, setting up and maintaining my own blog is on my to-do list. They also have got you covered if you need things like e-commerce solutions. They can do all of that and of course help with just your more general domain needs too. Go to squarespace.com, they will give you a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch your very own site, use the code MarkLewis for 10% off. Right, big thanks again to Squarespace for their support, and back to climbing the Alpe. I've got to be honest, it didn't go to plan. First of all, the gym, the garage, was incredibly hot. In fact, it was so hot that my GoPro kept cutting out and displaying the little "it's fucking hot" warning. Then I discovered that the Ride With Me feature has been removed in a recent Zwift update. If you know what that means, it means that you can't log into Zwift and select to ride with a random person already on Zwift in the hope that if you just keep picking different people, eventually you'll find somebody who is already riding up the hill, at which point you can join them, turn around, roll back down to the bottom and then start your climb. With that option gone, I had to start it the proper way, which basically means riding for ages to get to the bottom of the bloody hill. So before I started, I was too hot, I was too tired, and on top of that, 1 minute into my climb, I realised I'd forgotten to take my asthma inhaler, and going up the hill in that heat without a couple of puffs would have just had me collapsing on the floor. And if you're thinking, oh, we love to see you collapsing on the floor, that'd be fine. I would have been dead. You wouldn't have seen it unless Jen uploaded the footage in a bid to extract something useful from my demise. So by the time I'm hitting corner 1, I know already I'm in trouble. Because I've climbed the Alpe under an hour a couple of times now and noted down my corner times on those previous runs, I know exactly where I need to be at any given point on the hill to get to the top in less than 60 minutes. Equally, I know when I'm not going to make it. And it started to occur to me that it might be an idea to just forget the whole thing and do it another day. But then something happened, with the awesome saxophone of Timmy Capello ringing in my ears. The seat started slipping on the bike. Now the reason for this is because Jenna had used the bike herself to do a ramp test for a previous video, and I hadn't really tightened it up properly afterwards when I set it back to my size. And so I realised I only had two options: get off and tighten it up, which, because I've removed the quite frankly useless quick release, means tools and time, it's not very appealing, or forget the thing, do it tomorrow. At which point one sweaty's 80s influence was replaced by another. There is no tomorrow! So I decided to stand up the entire way, and I climbed out the Zwift, out of the saddle, cadence around 56, 57 RPM, all the way to the top. Did that burn my quads? Yes. Did I crack the hour? No, don't be ridiculous, I was miles off. But I did get eventually to the top of the hill. Come on! So how were the pedals? They were very good. They were rock solid on the bike, and because of the large range of movement that's available in terms of where the cleat's positioned under the shoe, I had them set quite far back. I don't like to ride on my toes. I find it fatigues my calves too much, which is no good if I'm then getting off to run on a duathlon or something. And so because I was stood up, that mid-foot position just worked perfectly. And should also add, they hooked up to my watch instantly via Bluetooth, all very straightforward. Obviously they have Ant Plus connection available as well if needed. That side of it, as you'd expect, very, very good. And the power readings looked right. What I was seeing on the Zwift screen, which was the power that was being sent to it from the Kicker bike, looked to be in line with what I was seeing on the watch, which was being sent the power from the Wahoo pedals directly. However, it was hard to show a simultaneous comparison because Zwift doesn't then present the data in the same way that Garmin does, so I can't put the graphs side by side. So what I then did was yesterday was the original test that I'd done that highlighted the problem to me with the Garmin pedals. I rode the bike with the power meter sending its information to my Garmin cycle computer and the pedals still sending their information to the watch. Gave me a side-by-side comparison. I did a ride, low power, high power, bit of a sprint, just to produce a very easy pair of graphs. And no surprise whatsoever, one expensive power meter, the one that's built into the Kicker bike, shows a reading that is almost identical to the one produced from the expensive power meters built into the pedals. Technology that costs a lot of money, working the way you would expect it to. That should be the norm, shouldn't it? Garmin, hope you're listening. So a couple of things are happening next. I'm going to get these pedals fitted onto my road bike. If you're thinking, oh, your triathlon bike? No, I'm getting a regular road bike soon. The triathlon bike is great for racing on. It's very unpleasant for training on the roads where you need to go around corners and avoid cars and people and stuff. So a full-on proper review on how these work in the real world coming very soon. And I'm going to incorporate a decent amount of cycling back into my weekly routine because I do not like the idea that I can't just jump on the bike and get up that hill sub 60. I've got to be honest, even if it had not been hot and the saddle had been working properly and fixed, I'm not entirely sure I'd have got up there as quickly as I would have liked. Okay, that is it for now. If you're interested in going with pedal-based power meters, my only experience thus far is that these from Wahoo look very cool, are a bit of a faff to set up on your shoe, but then seem to work perfectly. Alternatively, you can of course go with Garmin ones. Just bear in mind that if they read 100 watts out, that is what Garmin consider within expectations. Although to be fair to them, it's not all bad. That paper's not moved an inch.